Hi peeps, it's Tersse back in our squat box once again, and tonight, for a change, I'm talking about Scottish politics. The main thing at the moment being brought up in the UK about Scotland is the idea we want to become a nation on our own again. We want to leave the United Kingdom, become an independent country, remain in Europe, and a lot of flack has been thrown up about why this shouldn't happen and why it can't happen and why Scotland would have to try to rejoin the European Union, etc, etc. But I think this is all just smoke and mirrors. I mean, I think the real problem that we're having with this is England is scared that if Scotland does leave the United Kingdom and become an independent state and remain in Europe, the Europeans would then turn around to England and say, well, the UK has now shrunk, so the amount of money that they get back as a rebate as the United Kingdom will have to be renegotiated, downwards, because the United Kingdom gets quite a large rebate back on the money it pays to Europe, which was negotiated by Margaret Thatcher. It was one of the good things she did do for Britain when she was in power. And it's remained a bone of contention between the European states and the United Kingdom that the United Kingdom gets such a large rebate back. It's sort of like you pay your taxes and then you get a tax return. At the end of the year. Sort of we've paid so much and we want a rebate. That's basically what happens with the payment that the UK pays to Europe at the moment. And the English see this possibility of losing a huge chunk of money that Europe pays back to the United Kingdom if Scotland becomes independent and a standalone nation and remains in Europe. There would be some negotiations to be done for Scotland to join Europe, but the fact stands that Scotland is an existing European member. It wouldn't be like we're a new nation trying to join Europe. We are already in Europe, we already comply with all of the European statutes, laws, regulations. We've been a member of Europe for something like 40 years. I don't see how Europe could turn around and say to Scotland, okay, you've left the United Kingdom and therefore you have to leave Europe. That's absurd. It would be a case where, well, you're now no longer part of the United Kingdom, but you are a European nation. But now we have to negotiate with you the changes that must happen to a standalone nation. The UK have their rebate, that would be something that would be argued between the UK and Europe. Scotland be a standalone nation. We would then have to have negotiations on how much money we as a nation are going to pay to Europe as our fee for into Europe, We would also have to have border control issues discussed, and I've mentioned this before. What happens when Scotland becomes an independent nation from the UK? Do we put border controls at the border of England? I really don't see that we would need to put border controls at the border with England, but I think we would have to strengthen the border controls at our ports and airports. That would be something that would have to be negotiated with Europe and certified as sufficient for the security of Europe. As for joining the Euro, I don't see any reason why Europe would ask Scotland to join the Euro. It would be financially crippling to Scotland to change its money to the Euro. I don't think we would be willing to spend hundreds of millions of pounds to become a Euro nation. A European nation, yes, but we would keep the sterling. And I don't see that it would benefit England to try and kick us out of sterling. It would actually cripple the cross-border trade between Scotland and England, and Wales and Ireland. I mean, it would be more beneficial for them to, as the remaining UK nations, to say, okay, Scotland, you keep the sterling, but you may have to have some kind of tie-in to, the United Kingdom's interest rates and inflation rates. There would have to be some kind of joint banking between Scotland and England. That would be something we'd have to negotiate with the United Kingdom. Being a member state of Europe and paying European fees, duty, membership dues, you know, that's something we would have to negotiate with Europe. So that there is going to be a lot of financial, you know, back and forward negotiations with both the UK and Europe. It's going to be a difficult time for Scotland, don't get me wrong. And these are the things that which make me take a second thought of becoming an independent nation. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of Scottish people, like myself when I was younger, really wanted to be away from England, you know, for many years. But as I've got older and mellowed, I really thought that, you know, being part of the United Kingdom hasn't been too bad for Scotland. It was bad to start with, the way we were forced into joining the United Kingdom, but basically over the years there's been good years and good decades, bad decades, as being a member of the United Kingdom for Scotland, you know. And I suppose we're going to have that same back and forward, up and down relationship with Europe if we became an independent nation and stayed in Europe. But I don't see that we would have to leave Europe and renegotiate joining Europe. We are a member of Europe. I think that the negotiation would be how much of a fee would Scotland have to pay as a small nation already in Europe but now no longer part of the United Kingdom. And the problem for England would be how much of a rebate, of their rebate, are they going to lose by not having Scotland as part of the United Kingdom. And it would probably be a balance between how much money Scotland pays to Europe. That would probably be the amount of money that England would lose as their rebate, because once again it would be that amount less that England would be paying, no, United Kingdom would be paying to Europe to be a member. So it would decrease the rebate that England gets, no, United Kingdom gets. There is other things that I'm more worried about. What do we do about the army bases? What do we do about the American army bases? What do we do about the nuclear submarines, the nuclear power stations that were built on Scottish soil while we were part of the United Kingdom, which are come to the very, well, they're at the end of their life expectancy, and to try and, you know, spend billions to refurbish them and you know, keep them going. I would rather close the nuclear power plants in Scotland down over a period of say 10-15 years, transferring to green energy and do away with any nuclear energy in Scotland at all, completely. Go to wind and thermal, you know, or hydrothermal energy. We've got you know, water turbines. You know, I mean, we've got lots of water in Scotland. We could definitely have more hydroelectric, you know, and I would be moving towards that. I can't see Europe want to kick a country that is oil rich, fish rich. I mean, if Scotland becomes an independent nation, its waters becomes Scottish waters, and if they kick us out of Europe, then no European trawlers would be able to fish in the Scottish waters. It would be Scottish waters. So, you know, we could just say no French trawlers, no Norwegian trawlers, no fucking Danish trawlers, Swedish trawlers, French trawlers, you know what I mean? None of them can fish in Scottish waters. No English trawlers, no Welsh trawlers, no Irish trawlers in Scottish waters. We could do that. And so that's one reason why I don't think that people would want to kick Scotland out. They would probably want to renegotiate as an independent nation, as I say, the fees that Scotland would pay to be part of Europe, the border controls, the monetary side of things. If you keep the sterling, do you keep the ties with the Bank of England in order to you know, stop any fluctuations in you know, inflation and, you know, what do you call it? Inflation and, you know, interest rates, right? So that it still remains balanced between the countries in the United Kingdom, who are very close neighbours to us and would be trading with us, and changes in our monetary systems, say higher inflation in Scotland or lower inflation in Scotland than say England and Ireland and Wales, that would cause fluctuation and differences and difficulties for trade within the British Isles, and that would be something that would have to be negotiated as well. And you know, sort of like hammered out. But I don't see that it's Scotland leaving the United Kingdom and remaining in Europe not taking the euro as its currency, but sorting something out between the rest of the United Kingdom and the rest of Europe with, you know, fees it pays, interest rates, inflationary rates. That is something that we would really have to hammer out. So I think some people, especially those who are mostly well connected with the English Parliament, and see anybody leaving the United Kingdom as a threat to the United Kingdom. Possibly Ireland, Northern Ireland might want to leave, possibly Wales would want to start, you know, fighting for independence. I don't see that, but, you know, these are all things the English are very worried about. They've seen themselves lose an empire over the last 150 years, and I think they really fear becoming a single nation again. The United Kingdom has been very good for England, and reasonably good for Scotland, Ireland and Wales. So, and by Ireland I mean Northern Ireland. But England really feared becoming a tiny single solitary nation again, and able to be browbeaten by the Europeans, which they've always hated the idea of for fucking, you know, 800 years. They've been fighting with the Europeans, the Germans and the French and the Spanish. They don't want to go back to days when they can be ganged up on by these nations, you know, politically rather than, you know, militarily, is what I'm saying. And I think that's the fear that they have, and they will try all kinds of dirty tricks to try and keep Scotland as part of the United Kingdom. But as people say, the arc of history, you know what I mean, it's in the favour of Scotland becoming an independent nation eventually. They're on the wrong side of history if they fight the Scottish people on this, especially when they can't fight us militarily, and it's now down to politics and what people see as right, and with the democratic system in place now across Europe. I think a lot of these difficulties will be settled quite easily by just going to the Scottish people and having a referendum free of smoke and mirrors. The truth will out, and when the Scottish people find that these difficulties can be hammered out, and, you know, factual evidence can be put in front of them that it's doable, the Scottish people will vote in the referendum for it. That's my take on it anyway, you know. So Scotland, maybe in the next 10 years you might see an independent Scotland, and my only worry about it is I'm too old to really partake in it, and I'm too old to really deal with some of the serious changes that might come along through that process of independence, which might impinge upon my ability to live the sort of life that I've lived before. It could put a lot of financial pressures on me and my household, and that worries me. But I've got to think it's for the future of later Scots, the young people in Scotland and their kids, you know. I would see them having a better life if I'm willing to take that hardship in my later years, when I'm not really able to you know, bounce back from those kind of financial and social difficulties that I might meet through that changing period. But as I say, I am willing to go through that for the benefit of the future generations in Scotland, and who wouldn't? It's my country. I still feel a sense of nationhood, and I suppose that was taught into me and bred into me all my life about, you know, all the history we were told about, you know, Robert the Burns and the spider. If at first you don't succeed, try again. And Scotland has been trying to get away from England for centuries in many different ways, and this is just the most recent steps on that journey. I do believe that journey will end with independent Scotland, for good or bad. You know, for me personally, for good or bad, I'm willing to accept it if it's bad for me but good for my nation in later years. So that's my take on it, guys. Sonjiva.